Hello everybody. I'm just checking a couple of things are working okay and I'll be with you in a second. Yeah. All lovely. I think we're up and running. Unfortunately, the PC that I do the setup and the streaming on is the other side of the room from my cameras, so you won't see me straight away. Oh, a lot of people have been leaving messages already. I'm a little bit late. Suzanne is here. Hello, Suzanne and Kate. And Lee. Hello, Lee. There's always a Friday live. Hello, Dick. Good to see you. Yeah, we've had a lot of rain too, but it's just cleared. Well, it looks like it's starting to clear up a little bit. Hello, Chris, New Mexico. Hello, Tasha. I don't think you've missed a Friday live yet, have you, Tasha? How are things in Florence today? Have you got this grim weather we've got? Have you got nice weather? Hello, Kelly. Good to see you. Hi, Christine. Christine's in Zurich. Very cool. Hello, Diane. Yeah, the chilly Cotswolds. It is a little bit at the moment, isn't it? Well, it's been warmish today. It's just kind of it's kind of overcast and not so pleasant. Just check everything is working all right over here. Yes, I think we're all good. Welcome to a Friday live painting session. Today, very exciting, I'm going to be doing a simplified, as in a colour blocking copy of this Manet painting. At least it's out of copyright, this painting. It's attributed to Manet, it says on the Wikimedia. I've chosen this one because the subject is one that I like very much and is a very popular one, peonies. Manet is a very popular painter. I like some of his work. I like this painting. And I chose it because there's something I like about the colour design about it. The way the shapes have been handled so clearly on the peonies, from a very clear light shape, very clear shadow area against the dark black of the background. That's the bit that drew me in. So you should be able to hopefully see on the screen the chromaMagic app, which I've got up at the moment, which allows me to zoom in and out. If you haven't seen this before, it's chromaMagic, C-R-O-M-A-M-A-G-I-C. Michelle, if you're here, please do feel free to punt this app as much as you like in the comments. I'm a huge fan of this app. I think it's really useful, a fantastic teaching and learning aid. So you can see hopefully what's happening here is I'm clicking around in the digital photograph that I downloaded of the painting, and it is showing me the colours on the photo. Caveat, of course, is that I don't know how close this is to the original, but I'm guessing it's pretty close. And it's kind of immaterial anyway, because the point of this is to see what we can learn about. I mean, this image itself is a really beautiful image of the painting. So see what we can learn about light and shadow. So the other thing that I'm going to be using in tandem with this app, this is what makes it so powerful, the Paul Kentore value scale, which you can get for $10 on eBay. So you'll notice down the bottom of the screen, the bit of the screen that you can see of the app, where I'm sharing the app, there's a scale, these numbers. 1 is a low value, these are values, to 9 is a high value. So that means that with this value scale and this app, this gives me a way to transfer the values from the app directly to the palette and then to the painting surface. So I can nail those values. So as long as I get the hue and the chroma fairly close, should be all right. Here is the software I use to control my cameras. And now you should be able to see the easel, all being well. Christine loves Manet. And Faye too. Oh, hello, Elaine. I'm really glad you put your name in because I was going to have to say Eofschlot. Hello, Liz from Denbighshire. Lisa loves this Manet. It's hot, is it? In Brazil, it's burr. Vinicius says it's burr in Brazil. I imagine the sun is always out there. Obviously, I'm wrong. So, hello, Martha. Good to see you. So, I mean, this is an interesting one to do. I think Manet, well, especially these kind of paintings, like alla prima paintings like this, translate quite well to this kind of study because, I mean, this painting is a part of the beginning of the change from the kind of multi-layer, careful, more kind of academic and classical technique to alla prima. So one presumes that this painting was painted in a single session, an alla prima painting. And in that sense you could say is a more modern painting. It was painted in probably sometime after it's hard to say for sure, but I believe Manet did most of his small still lifes like this, floral still lifes, towards the end of his life, which would be his working life, which was only about 20 years, I think. So that would put it towards the end of the 1880s. Or so in the 1880s, sorry. I think he died 1886. If I remember right, something like that, I forget. No, a little bit after that, because that really famous painting of La Folie Bergère was 1886, wasn't it, I think? Let me tell you about the colours that I'm doing. I'm putting out here as they go onto the palette. Ivory black went down first. Obviously there's a lot of black in the background. Interesting, if you click around in the background, this is one of the things with digital photos. That is showing me black, like neutral, no colour. But some areas will show a little bit of colour. Maybe in the original painting, and maybe just a kind of an aberration of the photograph. Who knows? We shall see as we go. Ivory black. This is lead white. And I've got two yellows here, an orange yellow, cadmium yellow, and a green yellow. This is cadmium yellow lake. So with the exception of a couple of colours here, all of them are going to be Michael Harding. This is Rublev lead white. What should we put out next? Is there any red? Yes, there's a bit of red and orange. So I'm going to put out a blue red. I'm going to put out quinacridone rose. Why a blue red? Because it gives me a wider range. So I can mix an orange red easily by adding cadmium yellow to it without losing much chroma. There's no really high chroma orange in this painting anyway. And if there's any blue reds, then I can hit blue reds nicely too. Then we're going to have an orange. Transparent red oxide, low value. So I'm going down the value scale as I go down the palette. And I pair that with green gold. People who are used to me teaching would have seen me do this a lot of times. In fact, if you come to the Friday Lives often enough, you'll see me use these two colours together a lot. So these are used in the same way as, the way I use them in the same way as I've got the yellows here. So I've got an orange yellow and a green yellow. Here I've got a red orange and a yellow green. So that allows me to get a wide range of hue at very high chroma at the top of the scale and at the bottom of the well, towards the bottom of the value scale. There's some blue in there, so I've got some ultramarine. Most important colour is still missing. Hello, Dale. Good to see you. Died in 1883, but I thought that painting of the Folie Bergère was in 1886. I'll have to look it up now and find out. I could be wrong. I'm certainly no expert on Manet or the Impressionists in general, to be fair. There are things I really like about the approach, though. And yeah, as I was saying earlier on, they're especially well suited to this kind of study. So what this is about is just finding out what colours artists in the past used to paint their paintings. And it's one of my favourite discoveries about the way that you can use this chromaMagic app, is that you can sample the colours of the paintings, use the value scale to make sure that you get the value exactly right, get as close as you can to the hue and the chroma, and you can get really close to colour blockings. Here's one I did. So I'm in the middle of teaching a workshop at the moment, where this is one of the things that I'm teaching. This is one that I did in the workshop. That's a Fantin Latour painting of Dahlias. Very simplified. So that's what we're looking for by the time I get to the end of this. I'm hoping to do it in about an hour. Let's see how long it takes. I'm going to do a bit of roughing out. Try and get things in something like the right place. Actually, before we start, I'm going to oil the panel. This is getting a little bit dirty with paint, so I'm going to clean it out a bit. The reason I do this is I'm not going to do a wipe out here. I'm just going to paint, but prima pretty much as the original was made. But I like to oil the panel first. So this is cold pressed linseed oil, because it just helps the paint flow. This is an ampersand gesso board panel. It's a 10 by 8 inches. A little bit of turpentine, and they're quite absorbent, so I like to have some oil on there to paint it into. I have no idea if the Impressionists used to oil their panels. I suspect probably not. But a lot of the painters previous to Impressionism did. So, you know, you could say this is like hybrid. But what I'm after today, as I was saying, is a very simplified copy. So I just want the shapes and the colours. I don't want to paint any of the detail. But if I can get those right, and if I can use the app, if I make good choices about which colours I want to match, so I need to simplify it, obviously, then if you squint down, hopefully it should look pretty close to the original. So I'm just going to leave the chromaMagic app screen up at the same time as everything else. So let's do a little bit of roughing out first. Hello Lou, good to see you. Good, I'm glad. I love these Friday sessions too. Hello Ute from Belgium, good to see you, and you're very welcome. Yeah, he is definitely dead. If he wasn't, he would be like the oldest painter ever. And he died pretty young as well, didn't he? Syphilis, I think. Complications from syphilis. I believe. Right, so I just need to be kind of roughing this out. Now my panel is slightly wider than the original painting, so you'll see I've got like little strips down the side. So I just want very simplified shapes to start with. This is generally how, I mean, the basic approach I'm taking to painting this would be the same as if I was painting this from life, except that Manet's already done a lot of the work of simplifying the subject. And I have to say, I think he's done a pretty wonderful job of it. The strength of the separation between the light and the shadow actually is, I think, is something that comes more from academic painting, and he did study that aesthetic first and then moved away from it. And I think with Manet, sometimes he deliberately paints, I want to say he deliberately paints badly. I don't mean badly. I mean, I think he sometimes he would deliberately paint, you know, away from that aesthetic, if you like. Kind of deliberately paint things deliberately roughly, almost as a kind of snubbing of that tradition. And sometimes, like for me personally, when I feel like I'm kind of detecting that in the painting, I don't like it so much. Not because I'm particularly, you know, I'm defending academic painting. Personally, it's not an aesthetic that appeals to me very much. But, you know, I would rather something be done in a painting for reasons of what the painting needs rather than, you know, something like that. Sometimes I feel like he's trying too hard to be the rebel, you know. This painting I don't feel is like that at all. This painting I feel, apart from the colour scheme, which is very traditional. I mean, this could be a contemporary painting. There are lots of painters at the moment that paint with a similar kind of aesthetic, it seems to me, which I like very much. Alla prima. Kind of sketchy, but the forms are really strong. There's a really nice feeling of light and shadow in it. I'm just making marks here to work out where things are going to go at the moment. Because I don't want to get to the end of this and find that the colours are pretty good, but like the shapes are wrong. You know, I want the colour and the shape to be reasonably accurate, if at all possible. But I guess we'll see what happens. It's mostly the colour that I'm interested in. So I want to know, I'm especially interested in the difference between the light and the shadow colours. What colours he used there and whether I'm going to be able to get close to them. So I'm going to actually, for the dark areas, now I've got a good idea of where they are, I'm going to wipe this oil back more. Because otherwise it will be difficult to cover. It's quite a stark value scheme, this. So some of his paintings obviously were much lighter and fresher than this one. This is almost like a Golden Age Dutch kind of colour scheme with a very dark background and then just the colours of the flowers. Oh, Michelle's here. As you can see, Michelle, we've got chromaMagic up. Good to see you. So if you have any questions about the chromaMagic app, stick them in the chat. And because Michelle here, Michelle Clamp, is the creator of the chromaMagic app. Hello, Tinus. Please explain how the colour wheel part from chromaMagic works. I'm not actually using that today, the colour wheel part. I'm just using this bit. So I'm just going to be focused on this today, but Michelle might be able to tell you. Tea. Let's get some paint on. I'm going to go in pretty much with black. I'm going to put a little bit of, actually we'll have a tiny bit of transparent red oxide in it because I think the black might be a little cold by itself. Now I don't know obviously what black Manet used. Could be bone black. I'm not sure. I'm not an expert in what paints were used at particular periods, but I'm sure there's someone who does know. All I'm after is the end result. How dark that looks going down. How dark black looks when you can put it down on a white panel. See some brushes. It's a Rosemary's angled. Sorry, a Rosemary's Ivory Flat. It is a size 10, so it's a nice big brush. So what I'm trying to do is to use this to outline the negative shapes. So I'm just using the screen in the chromaMagic app to rough this out. So it's actually, you know, I've got my view of the painting is very small. And that's deliberate because if I can't see any of the detail, if it's difficult for me to pick any of the detail out, I'm less likely to try to paint it in the same way as if I was painting from a reference photo that I'd taken of an actual subject from life. I would do the same thing. I prefer to have them, especially in the beginning stages of a painting, I prefer to have them really, really small. Reduce them down on the screen, you know, so that I'm not tempted to start painting any details which are going to be unimportant. And especially for this, because I'm just after a simplified colour copy. This is covering nicely, but I'm going to need some more of it quite soon. But I do want the outside edges, the outlines, if you like, of the shapes to be reasonably close to what's there, which is why I'm doing this reasonably carefully rather than just throwing it all in and hoping for the best. More black. I very, very rarely paint paintings with very dark backgrounds like this. Excuse me. My own backgrounds usually have a bit more variation in them. But, you know, I could get into it. I really enjoyed doing the Phantom Tour one in the workshop. And it does, I mean, these deep blacks, they do give colours a real kind of a luminosity, which is really nice. So I'm just carving into these shapes, just eyeballing them, so there probably will be quite a few mistakes. And black is difficult to paint over and remove, so. But at least I know, you know, I'm working to a finished painting, so it's not like I need to make decisions about what's going to go where. So I think the way that I'm going to approach this is I'm going to get all of this in. At least most of this black in. And then I'm going to go straight in with the flowers, I think probably. And kind of work down and see where we end up. There's a kind of it's funny how close the bottom of the vase is to the bottom of the painting. Almost as if he started with the flowers and then put the vase in kind of towards the end and then, excuse me, suddenly realised that he didn't have enough room for it. We've all done it, you know. Start on the bit you like and then find out you haven't got enough room for the whole thing. Let's just scrub that in for now. Not really too bothered about what's going on in the bottom of the painting. And this little flower, you know, down here, it's like really close to the edge. But it's also, it's small and the value is quite low in comparison to the other ones. So it's difficult to imagine what it must have been like painting something that was so, in those days, flew in the face of, you know, accepted ideas of what painting should be. Hard to imagine what it must have been like then. I suspect, from the little that I know about Manet, that he kind of enjoyed it though. And that kind of approach of cocking a snoop at the establishment has become a hallmark of modern painting, modern art. Except that, funnily enough, the people that do the most, you could say, avant-garde art these days are the establishment. You know, I feel personally like the roles have been reversed, and it's almost like you know, more anti-establishment to be painting things that look like what they're supposed to be, like Homer Simpson said. That stuff looks like the stuff it looks like. Uh-oh. Here's the puppy. Hello, you. What you doing in here? Trying to gate crash the live stream. Hello, little girl. Did you just think you'd come and see what I was doing? You can't see her, of course. She's not on the camera, but our little puppy just came in to say hi. Hello, little one. Don't make a mess, okay? Right, so where are we? I think we're pretty close. Come on, you. You can't be in here while I'm painting. You're going to want to play, aren't you? No, I can't. No. No, I can't play at the moment. I know. No, I can't. Come on, darling. Come on.
Todd.
Can you take her out? She's knocked my mic off.
Come on, Todd.
Go on, little girl. Go, I know. Yes, I love you too. Yes, I love you too. Go and get a treat. Good one. Ches is our code word for cheese, which is Tansy, our little puppy's favourite treat. Sorry about that. And she'll drop anything for that. Let me catch up on the comments quickly, because I've got chromaMagic up. It's taking up my monitor screen that I would normally use to keep on top of on top of the comments, so I keep having to pop over and have a look. So Michelle, how does the hue wheel part work? The hue wheel part of the chromaMagic app. Someone was asking earlier on. A little bit of glare on that I can't see, but the cameras can see. Okay. So this is when it starts to get interesting. So that's most of the background laid in. A nice dark value. We're going to clean up the palette a little bit here. That's like the preparatory work is done. So I'm going to start with the shadow colors. So I can pick one of these areas and kind of click around in it, like any of these areas will do. Get a general idea so I can see what the values are. So over here, the left-hand side, the values are quite low. It's like a value, that area is a value 4. This part here is a good place to start. That also is a value 4. But, you know, you can see like in the bottom of the screen, around here, bottom left, you can see color swatches of the actual color, and that's where I think this app really shines. So we've got some that are more towards orange, some that are more towards green. The value is generally a 4 to a 5. The orange is a little bit lower value. Okay. But they're quite, notice how low chroma they are. They're not really intense bright colours. I mean, Manet being an impressionist, you might, or well, pre-impressionist, I suppose, you might assume that there were brighter colours, but these colours are actually quite traditional. And they're quite close to, quite close to reality too. So I want an orange and a greenish yellow at around a value 4 to a 5. So I'm going to be like around this area, 4, 4.5, 5. So let's do the greenish one first. I've got some green gold. Raw umber, knock the chroma down. Just add some white to bring it up to where it needs to be. Come up too fast. Too much chroma. So if I want to drop the chroma of that, it's a yellow-green, so I would tend to use raw umber for that. Raw umber, a little bit of white. Bring it up to around the same value. So this is the kind of thing, like, you know, on a live stream like this, I'm doing this one out of interest mostly. When I'm teaching, I go through the steps of the mixing much more carefully and slowly. I think it might still be a little bit too chromatic. Let's get that out of the way. Let's check the value anyway. I'm after a 4 to a 5. It's about a 4. Let's go up a little bit so I'm somewhere in the middle. And that will also drop the chroma a bit too. I think it's possibly still a bit chromatic. Raw umber, white. I'm using raw umber because it's much lower chroma. It's on the roughly the same side of the hue wheel as this greenish yellow because it's a yellow orange. It's not that close, but it's, you know, it's closer, for example, than black, which is the other color that I could be using to drop chroma. So I tend to use, with a green yellow like this, I tend to use raw umber. I wonder if maybe we've gone a little bit too orange. So I can send it, this will bring the chroma back up. I can send it more towards green with a little bit of this yellow lake, which is a green yellow. Not too bad. Let's try that. I have a feeling the chroma might still be a little bit high, but we'll see. So this is a Rosemary's Angled Eclipse. So if I'm anything like right, the only thing I've really got to compare it to at the moment is the black. So I want it to be looking right against the black. It's a bit dark. Bring it up a little bit. That's better. And with these kind of things, you don't really see how it's all going to work until you get quite a lot of the panel covered. Oh, fantastic. Christine says, on your question, Paul, I found this on the internet. Despite many of the Impressionists scorning the use of black, Manet used bone black or ivory black quite prolifically. Hello, Olaf. Good to see you. Bone black. I wondered if it might be bone black, but I think bone black and ivory black, I think, are quite similar. So what's the next area up from there? General colour I can use there. It's a lot lighter. It's very green, more of a blue-green. The value is going to be like about a 7. So I just want to get these colours blocked in. I'm going to add that orange in the middle of that shadow area a little bit later. So this is I want a similar colour, but it's gone a little bit more towards a blue-green. Now I could use a phthalo for that, but the chroma would probably be too high. I'm going to bring in a little bit of ultramarine because I want the chroma to stay low. Now it's gone too yellow. Knock the chroma down. Bring the value back up. What do we want? About 7. So as long as you get the values really close, you know, that's a lot of the battle. And that's why I think this is a bit of a game changer. Not if you just use it on its own, the chromaMagic app, if you use it along with this value scale, because the chromaMagic app uses the Monsell value scale. So if you have this value scale, you know, I can check that I'm getting the right value there. And if it's not right, I can adjust it a little bit. And all being well, it should get me really, really close to the actual colour that I want. And because, you know, I mean, it's one of the basic problems of painting is that we don't really see colour this way. Our perception of colour is very much affected by the colours that surround it. Which makes it particularly difficult to see, especially the values. So I'm just simplifying these whole areas. I'm not trying to paint any of the detail. It's actually, this is what's tricky about this, is this very dark background, is that when the paint goes into the background, even just a little way, children are going crazy. It immediately drops the chroma, and you get this almost kind of, you've got to be quite careful because you get an almost like a dirty sort of a mud, in fact. So what about this other area over here? Obviously there are a lot of different colours within here, but I just want the general. More towards a green, value is a little bit lower, value 4. One imagines that Manet, when he was painting these, was pretty much eyeballing the colours and then choosing from what he had mixed on his palette what he was going to put in. So I want to be about a 5 now. Whereas this is more in a kind of an analysis. Now what's interesting here is that this gives me a good idea. Certainly it gives you a much better idea doing it this way. Taking the time to actually copy it, like exactly what values he's using in the shadows. So he's mostly like around a value 4 to a 5 in these shadow areas. These colours are looking fairly good, I think. Surprising how green he's gone. Let's get some of these oranges in there. So fairly representative. We've got some deep reddish orange, like really low values here, 2 to a 3. Let's mix some of that in. We'll go like about a value 3. This is going to be, this is transparent red oxide, so that will be too high chroma on its own. So I'll bring in, it's also a little bit dark, so I'm going to bring in some raw umber, knock the chroma down, bring up the value a little bit. It's a little bit too red, so I'll bring in some yellow, then I'll have to knock the chroma back down because that brings the chroma up. Right, a bit darker than that. So this is mostly raw umber and transparent red oxide. Let's check the value I want, about 3 or lower. That's good. Put in a bit of that. I'll save that brush and use a different one. So you kind of like, it's almost like building it up like a jigsaw puzzle. But when you're painting from life, I mean, it's a really similar kind of a job. So even though Manet's done a lot of the simplification of the forms already, I'm simplifying even further from what he's done. And then we go a little bit lighter. There we go, there's a bit of orange up in there. That's too dark. It gets easier as you go further through, and you start to be able to see the kind of variations that you want. Very nice colours actually, I have to say. I'm liking the way that they work against that dark black background. Really very nice. I think I'm too light here probably. But I can go back into this a little bit later. Once everything's in, it's going to be easier to see if there's anything that I feel like I might need to change. Let's have a look over in the lights. So we're obviously up to white for some of this, almost. What hue is there is kind of greenish yellow. It tends towards the shadow a little bit as we go to the left. And interestingly, he's gone really green. Now, whether that's the photograph or whether he actually did go more green, blue in those shadows, I don't know. Now, technically speaking, that's a little bit out. If he was painting colours that were closer to reality, these areas where the hue is a cool green, they would actually be warmer. They would tend towards more of an orange. But let's do what Manet is doing. And I'm going to approach the lights a little bit at a time carefully. So the chroma is still very low though. I've been undisciplined with my white and got some transparent red oxide in it. Let's take that out. So I'm after a low chroma, green blue, of about a value 8. So that's green, gold and ultramarine I've put in there. Now I'm going to drop the chroma with a bit of black. Bring it down towards a value 8-ish. Just check it on the value scale. Value's not bad. Feel like the chroma is a little bit too low, possibly. Add a little bit more blue, a little bit more green. So it's true that I don't know how much Manet painted. I don't think he painted very much like plein air, if at all. I don't think he did he? But when you paint outdoors, you will tend to find colours going towards the shadows will tend towards more green blue. More towards blue, because of the light reflected from the blue sky, if it's a sunny day. Whereas in indoor light, they tend usually, shadow areas of low chroma objects like these flowers would be tending towards, slightly towards orange. So it could be that, you know, he was having discussions with Monet about what colour he was using for his shadows and he thought, oh, I'll try that. Or it could be that he just wasn't actually that bothered about the colours being that right. Liz says, Renoir considered black as the queen of all colours. That's nice. Nugar says, hi Paul, what am I seeing? What you're seeing is I'm doing a simplified colour block-in copy of this Manet painting. And I'm using the chromaMagic app to choose the colours, to try and get them as close as I can to the digital version of this painting that I'm working from. And I'm using this is the Munsell value scale. I'm using this to make sure that I get the values right, which is most of the battle. And then I'm eyeballing the hues and chromas just to get them as close as I can. So he's got a kind of a blue, green and a more yellow green going on here. And he's kind of moving between the two. So what I'm having to do a lot is, when I hit an edge where it meets the black, I pick up black on the brush, so I immediately have to wipe the brush off and then I can pick up some more paint. Very nice, very subtle colours. So I'm kind of approaching the lights bit by bit. Yeah, he's definitely, it looks to me very much like he's had a, I need some more white. He's had a yellow-green in the lights and a more blue-green, and he's kind of shifting between them. So what I like about the reason that I like doing these block-ins is that it's a little bit like, you know, if you want to analyze the color of something, you want to look at it really, really closely, not just look at the picture, but actually try and mix those colors and then paint them to see if you've done a good job of mixing them. It's a bit like, you know, when you draw something or you paint something from life, you move into a much finer kind of resolution of looking, and you appreciate things about it. If it's a flower or, you know, whatever it is, you appreciate things about it that you wouldn't have noticed if you just looked at it. So the more I see this, the more I'm thinking this is the way to approach the color in the lights, is as I'm getting towards the lights, I want a blue-green and a more yellow-green up at about a value 8. And then we'll push into the lightest lights from there. That's too high chroma. Bit of raw umber to bring the chroma down. So controlling the chroma is a big thing here. All of the colours in this painting are very, very low chroma. There's none of the shouty colours that people often assume, let's say, that Impressionists use a lot. I mean, I would say, Manet's not really an Impressionist anyway, is he? Not in the kind of the full sense of the term, if you like. Oh, got some black in there. Pre-Impressionist. Going to bring in a little bit of the green yellow now. We're getting up into the lights. Let's just have a look at that. Yeah. Green yellow, and we're really high value now. This area around here, and it looks like the paint is going on. That's a bit too high chroma. It looks like the paint is going on quite thickly here as well, like more thickly than the rest of it. And that also is I assume would be like a kind of a result of his more classical training that he did. More white. So just to recap, the top right of the screen is the chromaMagic app. And that shows a small version of the painting, the photograph of the painting that I'm working from. Need some black in there actually. And also need a smaller brush. So it shows you on the left hand side of that little area of the screen, it shows you is the app, and it shows you the whole painting on the left hand side and a kind of a zoomed in area on the right hand side. And all those colours there, the little colour swatches that it's showing me at the bottom that I'm sampling, they correspond to the Monsell value scale. So it looks like he's decided, like, here is really, really light, like I'm going to really throw my paint on there. So I'm going to do the same thing, throw it on nice and thick. Oh, got some black on my... I'm going to have to take that off, we don't want black in that area. Got some black on the kitchen roll that I was using to wipe off the brush. So I feel like we're kind of getting pretty close. On the flowers at least. There's a bit more, some yellow areas in here in the middle. They're almost like kind of, you could say, almost dirty yellow, like nothing is really that clean. I don't know what yellows they had available to them in those days, actually, in the late 1800s. I feel like I'm putting down some higher chroma notes than are really there in the original. See, and over this flower here, he's gone back to the blue-green. Interesting. So he's modelling the form, but he's using the blue-green to do it. Like the darker lights, but still using the more yellow-green for the light lights. Interesting. In terms of the actual colour, you would say that they're not quite the correct colours, really. You know, unlikely that peonies have changed that much. And that he found some peonies that had blue shadows on them. But at the same time, you know, the colours themselves are quite beautiful, I think. Colours that he's used. And it works still, you know, you can still see the form. But I doubt if I would have realised as much about the colours if I'd have just sat and looked at this painting and not actually gone into it and attempted to mix these colours that he's used. I feel like this area has got a little bit too light. This is another nice thing about this value scale. I know I want to be 4 or lower. I'm actually a little bit higher there, really. Let's bring that down a bit. There's some slightly more blue there as well. This is too high. little bit too high in value, I think, as well. So we'll bring some of this down. So now I've got the lights in, it's easier to see where I need to adjust a little bit. So the app lets me get really close, and then I'll adjust a little bit from there. And this bit here is much more bluish and a little lighter. Not that light though. So he's kind of got, gradually sort of, I suppose, trying to kind of, to get into his head a little bit. He's got, in the lights he's got a more green, a more yellow green and a more blue green. And in the shadows he's got, a lot of it is a more yellow green and a more blue green. And then he's brought in those little areas of orange. And it makes me wonder if those little areas of orange have been brought in because he could feel that it was going a little bit too blue, I wonder. I mean, obviously this is entirely conjecture, I have no idea. But it's interesting to try and get into the head of a painter and learn something about the colours that they were using and maybe try and guess why some things are the way they are. But yeah, I mean, a complete guesswork, obviously, I don't know. But I do know something about colour in the real world. Let's have a look at this blue on that. So I haven't quite filled in all the flowers. What bit am I missing? Just a little bit around here. I think he might got a little bit of black into his paint on these lights as well. Nice. I like it. I like the colour scheme. So looking at this vase, I'm going to need two blues. There's one blue kind of in the light area in the middle. That's about a value 5. They're low chroma blues in the shadow, down to about a value 3, very grey. Actually more greenish blues than I would have guessed. So the ultramarine that I have is more of a reddish blue, so I'm actually going to put a little bit of green gold with it, not that much, because I'm going to be dropping the chroma a little bit. I want to be a value 5. Drop the chroma with black because black is a blue. The chroma is very low, it's very close to neutral. That's way too dark. Get a fresh brush out for this. Yeah, see, I don't think, that doesn't look that green to me. I think I've gone too green. The hue, obviously, I'm having to guess. And the other areas are the kind of shadow areas are like a value 3. So yeah, the hue and the chroma, I'm just guessing as I go, and it's good practice from that point of view as well, because when you start to see the colours going down together, it becomes obvious what you've got wrong. A bit more chroma. Need to bring up the value. So I think this is possibly what drew me to this particular painting. I looked at it and I thought, I'm not used to looking at a Manet painting and going, oh, that's beautiful. You know, I'm drawn towards things that are probably, to be fair, I'm drawn towards things that have at least areas of them that are more carefully painted and less sketchy. But I wonder if part of what drew me to this one was at least partially the colours, because they are all very low chroma. Oh, that's right, that is in the shadows, it's going more green. They are all very low chroma, and it's kind of surprising from that point of view. A little bit too low value and chroma. As I say, I guess in areas where it's easy to do it, I'm kind of emulating the brushstrokes a little bit, but I'm not actually going for a straight copy. It's just the colours I want to get, really. I want to get the right colours in the right places and see if I can get fairly close to an overall impression of this painting. See, it's a very grey blue, that. I mean, if this was Renoir, that would be like all over the place. It would be much higher chroma. So now it's all covered, and I can have a bit of a stand back and see. How close, with the help of the app, I've managed to come. I I think my blue there is probably a little bit green, gone a bit green. But what I'm looking for is that if I squint down, that what I've got here looks quite close in terms of colour to the original. I would say possibly my light areas are too light in some parts. So I'm just bringing those down a little bit where I think they've got a bit too light. I think he has, it's interesting actually, there's something that's very Manet, distinctively Manet about the edges of these flowers, and I think he does, what's happened quite a bit, is the same that's happened to me when I've been painting the areas where you go up against the background, is that you end up with some of the black kind of coming into the paint a little. Oh, that was the wrong flower I did that on, I meant to put that there. And it does kind of change the effect of those edges, like they lose a lot of chroma where it touches the black. And that seems like quite a distinctive thing for Manet paintings. He would use black. I mean, there's one of the things that I've always disliked about Manet's paintings is that sometimes the black gets very heavy, and it feels like it gets mixed into the other colours too much. How can I get that to come in the middle? Like that. Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty much where I wanted to get to. So that's really interesting. So it's made me think more about the colours that he's used. I could fiddle with this forever and get gradually closer and closer, but it's overall the colours are generally speaking pretty near. With the exception of possibly some of the values being a little bit high. But apart from that, we're pretty close, I think. And the black against these colours actually, I think, works really, really nicely. It's slightly challenging to do from a point of view of controlling the paint and not letting the black get into those colours too much. But what lovely colours he's used. Kate says, what time did this start? About 6 o'clock, so, sorry, 5 o'clock. So, you know, after a bit of chatting at the beginning, I suppose probably something like an hour on this, maybe. You can't say that, Kate, that you like the copy more than the original. Outrageous. Well, you can if you want. I'm not going to bother with all the extra little bits that are showing around the edge, because it was mostly those areas that I painted that I wanted to see. Smooth some of this a little bit. I think this whole area around here that I've possibly got a little bit too dark. I wonder if that should have been a little bit lighter, maybe. So a little bit dark. Sorry, I've got it too light, I mean, and it should have been a little bit darker. I'm trying to think about something else and talk at the same time, which is never a good plan. Possibly I've gone a bit too light in the shadow area here. But we're pretty close, I think. If you squint down, so the idea is that if you look at the original and then you look at this copy and you squint, they should look, in terms of colour and shape, they should look reasonably close. So Martha makes a good point. She said, it's great to see a demo of one way of learning from a painting. Wouldn't it be great to do this from the reproduction after examining the painting and go back the next day to look again? Yeah, it would. It would be a very useful thing to do. And take your painting with you, you know, and then hold it up next to the original. I've actually got into trouble with guards at galleries from getting too close to paintings with Munsell chips. They don't like it. They don't like it when you do that. And I shouldn't say this, but in the National Gallery one time, I actually did touch the surface of a painting with a Munsell chip. The guard pounced on me, and rightly so. I didn't mean to do it. I just got overexcited. Jan said they had nickel tin yellow, a lot like your Munsell chip. Right. Yeah, tin yellow. And David says they use chrome yellow a lot, but not very stable, hence Van Gogh's oddly coloured sunflowers. Sure. Yeah, that might do, yeah. I mean, you know, to an extent, the colours changing over time may explain some stuff. The top left, I needed a little bit more chroma, I think, probably, to get closer, but we're not too far away. Martha says, I'm guessing the light on his arrangement was sunlight coming in a window. I would guess the same. I would guess sunlight. That could bring with it some sky and reflected vegetation overtones. If it was coming in from outside, from a window, the blue hue of the light would be only in the lights and not in the shadows, and he's actually bringing the blue in as it blue-green as it comes into the shadows. There could be some reflected light, yes, possibly. JB Townsend, that's a very nice comment. I'm very glad you found it useful. Okay, I'm going to leave it here for today. So this is kind of a demonstration of how you can use the chromaMagic app with the value scale as well. It really comes into its own if you've got the value scale too. So you can actually check all of the values in the chromaMagic app and then match them really closely using the value scale, which makes everything much, much more accurate and easier to do. I wonder if we can bring up the, yeah, there we go. So it gives you a kind of a real world check to make sure that you're getting the strongest foundation, the most important part of colour, that you're getting the values right. And then it's good practice from there because you can figure out the chromas and the hues yourself. I've probably, I think, got a little bit more respect for Manet after painting this. I think it's a really beautiful colour scheme. and I'm going to be looking at some of his paintings a little bit more and perhaps a little bit less critically. Sometimes I'm not a fan of the way he uses the black, but I think it's come out really nicely in this one. So have a go. You know, find a really good quality original, like this came from Wikimedia Commons, which is, I'm assuming that their originals are pretty good. Museum sites often have photos of paintings that you can download too. This chromaMagic app is like $20. It's ridiculously cheap considering how powerful it is. And this is a great way to learn, to emulate the painters of the past, you know, and find out how they did, what colours they really used. Really, really useful way to practice and learn. Just quickly before I go, I am in the middle of teaching a 2-month online workshop. About this subject. Obviously we're doing more than this, there's quite a lot involved in it. But if you want to find out more about it, you can click that link. We're 3 sessions into an 8-session, 1 session a week, 8-session workshop, but everything is recorded. So you can always go back and watch them later. So it's still open for sign up and will be until it's finished. And this also, by the way, you can always come back and watch this as often as you like because it's recorded on YouTube. So if you came here from my email, you can always get back here and find it again, or you can just follow the link, or you can just go to my channel and look on the live section there. I think I might do some more of these. They're fun and very interesting. Maybe we'll have a vote on paintings that people would like to see. I've got so much though. I've got so many ideas now that people have been kind enough to send me for live streams. I already have a lot on, but we'll see. I think this is a nice exercise too. Listen, it's pizza night. It's Friday. It's time for me to sign off. It's wine o'clock. I hope you enjoyed the stream and I hope it was useful.